into Wild Wednesday each week for your chance to win tickets to see your Minnesota Wild in an upcoming game. Wild Wednesdays are presented by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795.
All right, welcome back to 9 to Noon. I'm Alec Lewis, hosting for Paul Allen with Max Fuller here producing and doing a heck of a job. Pumped to have this guy in studio in his weekly spot. Sideline analyst on KFAN on game day, co-host of Twin Cities Live. Long time. How do you do all this stuff?
What do you mean?
I mean, it's a lot of you're doing. Yeah. Long-time NFL linebacker. It's Ben Leber. Ben, how are you? How was you guys' Christmas?
It was great. You know, Christmas was and is still a it's an ongoing situation. And then let me explain.
It's not what I expected.
It wasn't the best. So my daughter got sick on Monday-ish, not feeling great. She was around some friends over the weekend that weren't doing great. So the whole group they just all brought themselves down.
Classic.
As teenagers do.
Yeah, it's a classic move.
Yeah. They're just they were just, all hanging out and having a good time. They're doing all their little teenage Christmas parties and whatever. They all get sick. Well, so she's been down and out. We had my sister over on Thursday, on Tuesday. She was in her room. She slept for 17 hours.
Wow. So real sick. I mean, these teenage, yeah.
So then Tuesday night, Tuesday night into Wednesday, my wife doesn't feel good.
Naturally.
So all day yesterday, she basically sat kind of just sitting there, curled up on the chair, watching the kids open gifts
on Christmas
Day.
That's tough.
Not feeling great. The girls laid around all day yesterday, which is fine. Yesterday was just a lay around day anyway. But we didn't do anything, no plans. Boys just hung out. I just hung out with the boys. The sick girls slayed on the couches. So my house is quarantined. So,
well, no, it's great to see you. I can't wait to be sick on Sunday.
The great thing is so far, I feel great. My boys feel great. I mean, the second that they haven't felt good. So my daughter on Tuesday, I'm just stay in bed, stay in your room. There's even no reason to come downstairs.
Sure.
Maybe come down and get a little bite to eat or something if you can. But she literally sat in the corner and ate a little bit of food and did her own thing. And then my wife, all day yesterday, she just stayed she stayed on the couch away from everybody else. I have not she didn't sleep in my room, nothing. So it's how was Christmas? It was fine. It was fine. I mean, the kids had a good time opening gifts, but No,
I'm glad you're honest about it. So somebody, it was great. When it wasn't great.
I know. And my parents were supposed to come up today, and I called them yesterday. I'm look, both the girls are running fevers. I don't think you guys want to come up.
Yeah,
so
probably not.
So canceled those plans. So, Alec, it's great to be here with you outside of my own home, hanging with healthy individuals.
No, it's good. It's good to have you. Really good to have you. Glad we could give you an out. How much of the football did you watch?
I watched a fair amount, although I don't think I was really locked in.
Those games were terrible.
Yeah, they were hard to. I definitely watched to see how Netflix was going to handle the attention and the production. And I don't know if you guys already talked about it. I thought they did a great job.
No, we haven't talked about it at all. But I thought, I was laughing. It's which star are they going to bring out next? I
know. It was the Avengers of football coverage, literally.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. The only, I say this because I like the guy and I feel like he's gotten the wrong end of the stick when it comes to ESPN. I want to like RG3. Boy, he bugged the crap out of me yesterday. He really, of all the people on the panel, I'm look, RG, I think collectively we like you, but when you have streamers hanging out of your pants, and you're trying to it's like he had all these pre-produced bits that he was going to do, these sayings and quips and whatever. I'm like, it just didn't feel authentic. It felt really, really forced.
I think that can be the case sometimes. Like, I mean, I would agree with you. And I wasn't watching the studio segments that closely. Like, maybe there were times where I was just listening to Mina just because I'm interested to see how she handles that type of platform as a former writer. Like, that's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there are times, I think you use the right word for that stuff. It's like, are you just your authentic self or not? And if you are, like, you can feel it. And if you're not, I feel like you can feel that too.
Yeah, I mean, not to say that you shouldn't be prepared for every topic and subject that comes up, for sure. I mean, you have to have stats and little anecdotal things that I think strengthen your argument to whatever you're trying to make. But it's like some of the pop culture phrases that he was trying to throw out. I'm like, okay, I felt like you wrote those things down, you rehearsed those things. It just seemed a little forced.
It was like someone's Twitter on the air. Like, it was like him doing Twitter bits, but like over an NFL broadcast. I agree with you 100%, Ben.
Yeah. And I wasn't even watching. I was doing something in my office, and my wife was like, she's like, who is this guy on TV? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what's going on. She's like, who's this Andre 3000 guy that's on TV? And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. So I rewind the whole thing, and I'm like, he goes up to the big screen and does this quarterback breakdown. I'm like, what is he doing? Why does he look like he looked like Andre 3000 dressed him? And I'm like, what is he doing with the streamers hanging out of his calves?
That's phenomenal.
What is that? I know I'm 46. I'm not hip with all the clothing and style, but I'm like, man, Cam Newton doesn't even do that.
Right.
If Cam Newton doesn't do that, I don't think you should be doing that.
That's spectacular.
I don't know.
I will say, I thought like the broadcast production
was great.
The picture was awesome. I wish the rewind functions and all that stuff was always better, but I think that's just a stream thing in general. But I thought, for the most part, I mean, I love Greg Olsen. I think he does such a good job. I like J.J. Watt on there even.
Same.
Some people were like, yeah, he said we, the Steelers, it's his brother. Like, I'm not like that big of a curmudgeon to where I'm going to get mad about that. Mm-hmm. Like, I like the analysis of edge rusher play, pass rush, that type of thing. So I thought for the most part, it was pretty good.
I thought the 3-man booth was great. It was easily consumable. I thought that during the game, the announcers that they had chosen, I just thought it was a very easy listen. And they, for their first time being on a big stage like that, I thought they knocked out of the park. I actually prefer their broadcast over Amazon, and Amazon's been doing this now for a year and a half. So I think that they already did a better job. And then, holy smokes, I mean, Beyonce's halftime show. I mean,
I don't know why we buried that lead.
It was as good as any halftime show that we've seen in a while.
She never misses. Like, I had some people text me like, I can't wait to see it. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully. It's always going to be good. It's Beyonce. There's the thing. Like, and I'll be honest, she's not my jam. Like, I don't particularly love her voice or her music. But you can't deny that production and her entertainment value was off the charts. Yeah. I mean, and I guess I didn't realize that the NFL is going to allow them to do an extended halftime. But what they did, and they used every bit of that field, and I'm like, this is a Super Bowl production. This is crazy good.
No offense to Kendrick Lamar, just replay that during the Super Bowl. Just replay the Beyonce performance, because that was incredible.
I don't know.
It was movie level. Like, she has mastered the art of the live performance.
She really has. I mean, to have Post Malone in there, to have all. I mean, it was. I couldn't believe it. I was just watching it, and I think I was just more in awe. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize we're going to get this level of halftime.
No,
what is happening here?
It was spectacular. I've got a question for you. We're going to come back from break, and I've got a question about the Chiefs that I want to ask you. That I was excited to ask you. So we'll be back. This is Ben Leber in studio. I'm Alec Lewis in for 9 to noon. I think that's what it's called. So thanks for tuning into The Fan.
Head over to NFLshop.com for the largest collection of officially licensed gear from all your favorite brands. NFL Shop is your ultimate gifting destination for jerseys, t-shirts, headwear, and more. Take your game day style to the next level with the best selection of NFL gear anywhere. Show off your team pride this holiday season with styles fit for the whole family. To shop now, go to nflshop.com.
Don't miss the party after Vikings vs. Packers this Sunday. Country music sensation Nate Smith hits the stage after the final whistle for an unforgettable free post-game concert inside of US Bank Stadium. Stay in your seat and celebrate with fellow Vikings fans as your team hunts for the #1 seed. And make sure to tune in this Friday to hear how you could win your way into the game and show up with a pair of tickets.
It's 9 to noon here with Ben Leber in studio. Ben, the question I want to ask you, and I was thinking about this, I watched the game yesterday, I knew you were going to be here in studio. Did you play for Spags?
I did.
Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo.
I did. Yes. So you and I don't know each other that well.
Right.
But I'm going to put it to you right now because other people have heard this as well. Let me say this. That was the worst year of my football life.
Wow.
And it's not because of him specifically. I mean, his defense was very eye-opening in a lot of ways. So I didn't do myself any favors. I got picked up that year. That was the lockout year.
2011?
It was 2011. That was the lockout year. I was a free agent. I was coming off a knee surgery, just a knee scope, clean out deal. So I wasn't 100% healthy in the offseason. I couldn't work out for anybody anyway. It was really difficult as a free agent. I think I signed 2.5 weeks into training camp. So by that point in time, I didn't know the defense at all, missed all of the offseason stuff. They basically handed me the playbook and I was already on page 100, when I got there.
Wow.
So it was really difficult for me to pick up that defense because that defense is the most complicated defense I've ever been a part of. And it is one of those systems where, and I hope he doesn't even mind me saying this because I've said it before, but James Laurinaitis, local guy who's now the Ohio State linebacker coach, one of the smartest football players I've been around. He was even telling me, he's like, look, man, it's taken me a couple years to pick this thing up. He's like, I think he was into his third year in the system. And he's like, I'm just now really, really understanding it to the point where our linebacker coach would ask him questions in meetings and have him go up on the board and draw things up and iron things out because even our linebacker coach was unsure of what to do in certain situations.
So Laurinaitis would just be on the board in the meeting room.
Oh, all the time. All the time. And we'd have a linebacker raise his hand and be like, hey, coach, so do we have to do this in this cover 7? And he's like, against so-and-so last year we did this. And then it's like, I don't know, James, how do you see this? and James would be like, going by the base rules. Yeah. Then we have to do, this linebacker is this responsibility. This linebacker is this responsibility. That happened 3 times a meeting.
Wow.
James, what do you think of this? Aren't you the coach? Come on. So yeah, it's I played with them for 1 season and we did not have a great team, because Sam Bradford got hurt. Surprise, surprise. And, we struggled, but that defense is cool when it works, because he really tries to be offensive minded as a defensive scheme.
Yeah.
He wants to manipulate the offense versus being reactive to the offense. And it gets difficult. He has a check and a call and an adjustment for every single shift, motion, whatever. So if offenses are like shifting back and forth, it requires a ton of communication.
With the noise, amid the noise, yeah. I mean, with the adrenaline. Part of the reason I wanted to get into this is because to me, and I wondered what you thought, it feels like he and Brian Flores, I mean, I don't know. It feels somewhat similar in terms of why his defenses succeed and why Flo's have. What do you think about that?
Now, I've heard.
And you could tell me I'm straight wrong.
So no, when you're watching it with your eyes, it is a very similar sort of, a lot of moving parts, right? There's a lot of pre-snap stuff going on. There's inherently a lot of bluffing that goes on, a lot of deception. The way that I understand Flo's defense is a lot of that seems more complicated than it is. From the guys on the inside, like, no. From an actual scheme standpoint, it's easy. Like, the coverages are easy. He's not trying to trick you as a defensive player on the coverages. Like, the coverages are just like cover 2, cover 4.
Yeah, just get to this spot.
Just get to this spot. It's everything. It's the concert and the production that happens pre-snap that's the confusing part. And that's why it takes a lot of reps against a lot of different looks to know that, like, all right, I know Metellus is there, but he's going to end up over there. So it doesn't matter what he does all before that. I just know where he's going to end up in the final look. Spags' defense is a little different. It's a little bit more of the coverages change a lot. That you might be dropping one area, then you have to drop a different area. Wow. So that is the difference, I think. Is Flo's looks complicated, but it's really not.
Yeah. The interesting thing to me with Spags and what you're talking about is, like, the players they have in that system right now, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, those guys have been there 3 years, 4 years. And the continuity with smart players that understand the system with that same system, to me, like, I think so often we probably just underrate the amount of time player has with coach or player has in scheme.
Correct.
And so, like, with Flores specifically, like, that's part of why I think it's so impressive. He has not had time with Blake Cashman. He has not had time with Andrew Van Ginkel, I guess, in the past. He's not had time with Jonathan Grenard. And yet it feels like, to use your, like, the orchestra, the rhythm of it exists without that time. To me, it's just, like, kind of blows me away.
Yeah, and maybe that kind of speaks to what I've kind of understand about both schemes is B-Flow runs a scheme that looks complicated, but guys from off of other teams can come in, and after one off season, they're in. Yeah. Like, they're in the quote unquote flow, right? Whereas Spags' defense, it takes a couple years of some longevity with players to really understand it. I mean, case in point, when he went to New Orleans, that defense sucked. Yeah. And I was talking to my guys and my buddies in New Orleans, and they were actually texting me, and they're like, dude, what's up with this defense? And I'm like, I don't know. You guys, like, I don't know why he's making it harder than it should be. Because most of the time, every other coordinator I've ever been around, they simplify the defense for you to play fast. They want you to mentally and physically play fast because you're always inherently a half a step behind, because we don't know what plays are going to be run. Like, we just have to react. We're all reaction. So make it as mentally simple as possible. Well, Spags took the opposite approach. And my friends in New Orleans on the defense, they're like, dude, we are swimming right now. They were texting me during the season, like, we still don't know what we're doing.
Wow. Like, it's just teaching too. I mean, I think that so much of it is like, and we don't talk about it enough, but, like, some of these coaches, why they're so successful is, like, the way in which they teach, the like Kevin O'Connell and his offense. It's very complicated. I know you've talked to him about this stuff, but I've sat in his office with Kevin before a season, and his whiteboard looks like hieroglyphics. Yeah. I mean, I swear there are words everywhere, lines, shapes, and I'm like, how could this possibly make sense to any person in the entire world? And yet, on Sunday, especially of late, because there were pre-snap penalties, obviously, with Cam Robinson against the Bears. But, like, on Sunday, the offense was pretty crisp, I felt like, in terms of motions and all this stuff. And to me, it just comes back to teaching, like your third grade teacher who can systematically, day by day, like, develop your knowledge of something. And that's what some of the best at this, to me, they just have that skill and others don't.
Yeah, and that's why the not so talked about skill that a head coach has is finding your assistant coaches. And if you can develop, if you can, it's not just talent acquisition from a player standpoint, it's talent acquisition from a coaching standpoint. Because to your point, you're right. Kevin can't be in there in every meeting. Yeah. He can't walk away from his offensive install, spend some time in the quarterback's room, which I'm sure he does, and then go to the tight ends room, and then go to the offensive line room, go in the running back room. Like, you don't have that time as a head coach, nor do you want to create that environment where you're superseding every one of your assistant.
Yeah,
you can't micromanage like that. So you've got to trust all of your assistant coaches to run and implement everything that you're talking about to the detail that you're talking about. That's a hidden skill, and he's got it.
Yeah. We're going to talk Vikings-Packers when we come back from break. This is Ben Leber in studio, 9 to noon. Alec Lewis in for Paul Allen with Max Fuller producing. Having a lot of fun here the day after Christmas. Thanks for listening to The Fan.
Head over to NFLShop.com for the largest collection of officially licensed gear from all your favorite brands. NFL Shop is your ultimate gifting destination for jerseys, t-shirts, headwear, and more. Take your game day style to the next level with the best selection of NFL gear anywhere. Show off your team pride this holiday season with styles fit for the whole family. To shop now, go to NFLShop.com.
Stick around following every noon Vikings game this season for Vikings Overtime, hosted by Paul Meat Sauce Lambert, presented by Park Chrysler Jeep in Burnsville. Catch them all right here on KFAN and on the free, that's right, FREE iHeartRadio app.
Welcome back to 9 to noon. Ben Leber, wow, in studio. That wasn't good. I got to be better than that. I almost botched the
Ben Luber.
Yep.
I don't know if you're going to go Luber or loser. I mean, I guess.
Tommy was hoping for one direction specifically.
I know. And I was not going to spell it that way, but I suppose you could.
I mean, people call me Alex every day of my life. So, it's.
I know.
You're just passing it on.
What is the story with that?
End the cycle.
They should call me Alex, honestly. Why would my parents try to get creative and do something different? Just do it.
Is it a family name? What's the deal?
No. It's just like they thought it was like, I mean, it wasn't cool, so I don't know what they would have done. I don't know why.
I mean, Alec Baldwin's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Let's be very careful.
As long as you're not a stunt guy, he's great.
Yeah, I mean, come on. So we haven't talked much about like Vikings specific. I want to get into the Packers game, but the first thing I want to ask you. So like I was looking at this the other day. I mean, a lot of these defensive players are going to be free agents. Your Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, Cam Bynum, Jerry Tillery, Jonathan Bullard, Jihad Ward, Fabian Moreau, Pat Jones, Byron Murphy Jr. Like, I wondered to you, just which of these guys like would be a priority, and maybe specifically if we're talking Cam Bynum versus Byron Murphy Jr., like where does your mind go with those two guys?
Oh, man.
And that's not to say like it's not me saying they can't do both, but that would obviously hamper what they would be able to do everywhere else.
Yeah. Well, I think that the importance of safety. Because we all think that Harrison Smith is, you got to look to the future, right? So I think Cam Bynum becomes a big priority on what you're looking to do. It's hard not to look at what Murphy's doing. I mean, he's going to be probably a Pro Bowler. I don't know when that voting's finalized, but he's like second, third in the NFC as far as interceptions go.
6 picks, I believe.
Yeah, so. You feel like he's a huge important piece of this. I think that he becomes even more important if you really look at the next year and beyond and you find a couple of lockdown corners and then he can really just focus in at that slot position. He becomes even more valuable. I think that there are a lot. You mentioned there's a lot of names. I think when we boil this down, maybe not a ton of high priority guys that we feel like we have to have back that you don't feel like you could replace in free agency and just kind of picking up and trusting the development of the people and the guys in the depth positions behind. So yes, a lot of names. I'm not exactly sure there's going to be a ton of high priority guys to bring back.
I'm with you. I mean, I think like at times this year, the corners have done an admirable job for sure, especially for what they're paid for. Like I think at times Jerry Tillery has done an admirable job. At other times, not. Jonathan Bullard, to me, I mean, they're paying him like $1 million. This guy's done a great job stopping the run, does what he does. Pat Jones is probably like DJ Wanham last year, and that with the season he has, he gets paid somewhere else, and you give him a lot of credit for the work that he's put in. But I am with you where it feels like to me, and that's kind of the question is like the Byron Murphy Jr., the Cam Bynum, where you go and how that shakes out with other positions and what else you can pay. We'll segue to the Vikings-Packers game because this is going to be really freaking cool. I mean, like, how do you think this defense stacks up against the Packers offense right now?
Well, it'll be the biggest challenge that they've had in the last several weeks for sure. I mean, there's certainly a balance that Green Bay has. There's the offensive passing game that seems to be coming alive, certainly as of late. It's going to be tough. It is going to be very, very tough. I am very excited to see how we handle it. Can we generate pressure? Do we have to sacrifice guys in the back end of the defense? I mean, that's kind of that is our MO. We're asking our secondary to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But as everybody knows, when you do that, we inherently give up a lot of holes in the passing game. Our mentality of bend but don't break, does that stay true to this game? And if so, can we keep playing rock star, red zone defense? Although I say rock star, I think we're 13th now in the league in red zone defense. So, we're okay. We could be better. But, bend but don't break really needs a better red zone defense, I think. So, can we stop the run a little bit more? I mean, the thing with the tough thing with Seattle, looking at the barometer, is like they just don't run the football.
Unbelievable. It's like the air raid.
I know. I don't understand it, and I know that this offensive corner is probably going to be a one and done and get out of there. So that wasn't a true test of how our run defense is. And even when they did run the ball, they ran it pretty damn well. And I was like, what? Why are they not running the football when they're going 6 yards a clip?
It was like first play of the game or first 3 plays in the game. There was one run where Kenneth Walker picks up 12 over on the edge. And you're just like, why were you going away from that? And
I know.
And I always say play calling is so complicated. There's so much information that goes into it that I always hate second guessing play calling. But at some point it's like, is this not obvious? Especially after the Vikings struggled twice to stop the run against Atlanta and Arizona. It didn't really make much sense.
Yeah.
And we talked about this on the pod, on my podcast. We talked about Ivan Pace, and they didn't practice yesterday. The Vikings did not, but he was listed as full in the estimator report. I really think, if there is a game to have this guy back, it feels like it's this one.
It feels like it's this one. I think we really, really need to have him back. I didn't realize how big of an important missing piece he was going to be in the run game. But man, it just seems like our run defense has been kind of shoddy lately, and he's been out of the lineup. So is that the direct correlation? I don't know, but kind of seems like it is. The things that we can do, the things that he can be disruptive. I mean, we've always said before, there are things that don't show up in the stat line because of the things that he can do. He is a disruptor. He runs downhill, clogs holes, takes out a would-be blocker for somebody else on the edge or otherwise, and that's not going to show up in the stat book. And you're like, wow, we play great run defense. Yeah, because this human bowling ball just went downhill and wrecked shop.
He is this stat that I found as I was working on a story earlier this week. When Minnesota has Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace Jr. on the field, they're like the opponent's explosive play rate is 7.7%, which would be like the Vikings defense is the best in the NFL when both those guys are on the field. And to your point, it's so hard with the run game in general of is it one guy? Is it the unit as a whole? Is it the opponent's blocking scheme, the opponent's running scheme? But I think with Ivan Pace, he is just, I joke with friends all the time. If there's one guy on this team you don't want to fight, it might be Ivan Pace Jr.
Yeah.
Because he's going to find a way. And that's how it feels with the run game. He's just going to find a way to get to the ball carrier, and none of it ever really makes sense.
No.
But he does.
I know. And the thing is, if we see that, then obviously the offense sees that.
Yeah.
As they're getting ready, as the Packers are preparing this week, they have to be thinking about him in the lineup. And you're watching film of this guy, and every offensive lineman is like, dang, man, like this guy's going to come out of nowhere and just clip you right in the hips or like hit you in the face, and you got to be prepared for that, you know? So he does bring the fight to the offense. Whether or not that's going to show up in the stat line, he brings the fight to him. I think it changes the run game. It changes their approach and what they can do. But this game might just come down to who can score the most points. And I know that's so stupid and so silly to think about, but this might be a high-flying shootout type of game unless our offense, which we're not great at, is sustaining drives. If we can play the game of who can pick up the most first downs, and maybe the most important stat at the end of the game is which offense has the most first downs and can move the chains the most, is going to win this game. Because if we give them a lot of opportunities, if we go 3 and out because we go 3 straight passes and we've got a punt, and then we give the ball back to this offense that can run and they can do all this other stuff, that could be a long day for our defense. So I think sustaining drives and first downs could be just a huge factor in this game for us.
It's a great point. I also think, I mean, and this is not a leap of, I think the score of the game is just so important, especially early. Like in that first matchup, the Vikings led 21-0. And so what did the Packers have to do?
One-dimensional.
Yeah, they felt like at least they had to throw, and they have become a run operation. And so if the Vikings can generate an early lead and make Jordan Love have to see the field, to me, that is where you want to live in this game. But I mean, like Jordan Love, to me, it's so interesting watching him at the beginning of last year against the Vikings. I think it was like week 8. That was the day that Kirk tore his Achilles. I was like, I don't know, man. Like this guy's athletic, but I don't. And then week 17, he comes in here. I know the Vikings had Jaron Hall, so it was a whole different. But and then watch him in the playoffs, you're like, holy cow, this guy extends. I was watching film the other day, the arm angles. It looks like he can see it if he has time. He's just such an interesting quarterback to me.
He really is. And at the same time, I will say that he throws the ball into trouble a bunch. And it's because he wants to have the mechanics of Favre and Rodgers. And stylistically, he sort of looks like that. But we could be talking about this on Monday and we're like, yeah, he threw 3 picks.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some 50-50 balls. I'm like, I don't think they have to be 50-50 balls. He just kind of plays a little loose. And so there very much could be an opportunity to get your hands on a football a few times, just like we had last week against Geno, you know, where we had 2 of them. They dropped, you know, Blake dropped one.
Cashman dropped. That was Josh Metellus. You saw him dive on the ground.
I know. So I'm guessing that there could be some situations, but yes, if we can jump out and feel and kind of put them on their heels offensively and like, oh man, they have to get away from the run game a little bit and not find that balance. A couple other points I was going to make is when it comes to our offense, I think one of the biggest factors too is the number of targets that we have across the board. I think that we have to get a lot of people involved. This could be one of those games where, and I'm hoping, and I'm looking at the Lions game that they dropped. You look at the way the Lions played that game, and it was a lot of targets to a lot of different guys. I think they had six different receivers catch balls, you know, receivers being tight ends and running backs as well. They all had at least 6 targets, and some were 7 or 8. So I think the disbursement of the football going across the board is a way to pick apart this defense.
Interesting.
If you say that, hey, we're just going to rely on JJ getting 10 targets this game, maybe when it's all said and done, but you know those other guys that we have, they better have 7 or 8 as well. And which also means we're kind of getting left-handed here, just throwing the football a lot. Maybe we're getting a little out of balance. But I just think that the best way to kind of like pick apart these guys and move the ball down the field and pick up first downs is like, all right, JJ, Addison, Hawk, backfield, Hawk, Justin. You know, it's like here, there, and just kind of take what the defense is giving you, which is what Sam's been doing a great job of lately. If he can keep doing that and not just hone in on one particular guy in certain situations, I think that we won't have a big problem with this defense.
Yeah, I feel like, one of the most impressive aspects of Sam of late to me, like obviously we could talk about the pocket movement, all that stuff, but it feels like it is decisive. Mm-hmm. And he's seeing it. And it's like 1, 2, boom, in Addison's hands, touchdown in Seattle. Let's get back to the bench. Like that aspect of his decisiveness, the conviction in what he's saying. I think when I entered the season and I had questions, obviously like everyone did, like the people listening, you guys listening right now, you had questions as well. If there was the biggest for me, maybe beyond, there's the inaccuracy stuff, the pocket movement, all that. But for me, it was, can he process the field well enough, quick enough? And I feel like he is doing that right now better than at least the entire year and probably in his past. And I feel like to your point, to be able, especially underneath quick, find TJ Hawkinson on a quick little option route, find Aaron Jones on the check down. He's done that stuff, and he's going to need to against this defense.
Yeah, and what are these defenses lately doing to us? And we've seen it time and time again. They know that we are a big shot offense.
Explosive plays.
So what do teams do to us in the passing game, whether it's play action or not? They get deep drops.
Yep.
They take a lot of deep drops. So what we saw last week against Seattle was, all right, if he gets time in the pocket, which it's a whole separate conversation. Like we have to get, this Packers front four is very, very good. If we get time in the pocket, fine, take your deep drops. Well, we either have a guy leaking out of the backfield or we're going to have a tight end that's chip releasing. And those chip releases and those dump offs and checkdowns are not sexy. But when you have a deep shot offense, checkdowns work because every checkdown is moving the chains. They're not just checkdowns like 3 or 4 yards. Checkdowns in our offense are like
11-yard game.
It's like 11-yard game.
Yeah.
And that demoralizes a defense because you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to drop this far all the way back to take away Justin and Jordan Addison. Yet now I got to rally back up and try to cover and tackle a guy like Aaron Jones who's elusive in the open field. It's exhausting.
There's no question. And the thing you said there that really hit my ear, I think we don't talk enough, like you said, chip releases. So like for the people listening, what is that? Well, when the running back leaks out of the backfield and they just get a nudge on an edge rusher and then they find the flat or they find the underneath. That is, and I wrote about this earlier this week, that is all like schematic intentionality. Yeah. And they do, so I think this staff doesn't get enough credit for one area, which is like how intentional and how much they think about, okay, not only pass protection, but also how can we do two things at once? How can we get a hit on an edge rusher and then also provide a route for Sam Darnold if he needs it? Like that type of stuff. As the more I've thought about all of the praise that Kevin O'Connell is getting and this staff and all this stuff, like that element of it, to me, in terms of just like minute design, that is very hard for even me to pick up. It's a massive edge for what they've done.
You know who's phenomenal at that? And I would like to, I'm not going to go back and watch every one of his catches. Josh Oliver.
Oh my.
A lot of Josh Oliver's catches, he's chip releasing. He is a blocker at the line. He's gonna provide another set of hands on whoever the edge rusher is. He's going to give a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Then he's going to go out. And they just leave him alone because they're like, I've got to go cover these guys in the deep dig and these deep overs down the field. And in my initial drop as a defensive player is like, I see this tight end that's blocking on the line of scrimmage. And then he just leaks out of the backfield and he picks up a first down. They do that time and time again. So it not only gives you time for the quarterback if the deep shot is there, if the defense presents itself, or like, oh, let us check it down. No big deal.
You mentioned the Packers pass rush, and I said with John Kuhn earlier in the show, like they've got guys that I don't even know these guys' names. Edgerrin Cooper, rookie guy, he's a linebacker, but they'll put him on the edge and he'll rush the passer. You gave me a stat between one of the breaks about their pass rush that I kind of made me sit back in my seat.
Yeah, this kind of puts it in perspective. Everybody's like talking about how good their pass rush has been, especially their front four. So when you look at their blitz rate, and everybody knows the Vikings blitz rate is not right near the top, right?
Of course.
The Packers blitz half as much. I think we're at like 37%, 38% blitz rate. They're at 17. Okay, so they're more than double. We are more than double than what they do. They have one less sack than us. I think we have 44 sacks or something like that, and they have 43. So what that tells you in the stats and the numbers, and what your eyes tell you when you're watching the games, is they don't have to sack the quarterback by blitzing 5 and 6 guys. They can bring 4.
Which means another person in coverage.
Which means 7 guys in coverage.
Yeah.
So not only are they dropping 7 guys, taking away all sorts of windows, but then you can trust your front 4. I mean, that is the dream for every defensive coordinator. That is what we strive for when I played, is to just have a front 4 that can go out there and get after the quarterback. Now, there's going to be some twists. There's going to be some stunts. There's going to be some movements. But they can trust those guys on the front 4 to get after the quarterback. They don't have to sacrifice their 5th or 6th guy. So that is going to be a huge challenge on Sunday.
And then when they do bring guys, like they'll bring Keyshawn Nixon off the edge out of nowhere.
He's a great slot blitzer.
And you're just like, whoa, okay. Yeah. And that reminds me a little bit of what the Cardinals did and why I felt like they had some success against protection. That's another, like, most in the weeds aspect of this game. I don't think Josh Jacobs is the best pass protector in the world. Mm-hmm. And if Ivan Pace is healthy, what do the Vikings like to do? They like bringing Ivan Pace, and he's in there like a bowling ball on those running backs, and he can really like mess things up if those guys don't protect. So that aspect, and then on the other side, like I said, when the Packers bring pressure, Aaron Jones has done a phenomenal job. I felt like all year in pass pro. So that's key. Before we get you out of here, Ben, we talked about Sam Darnold in the future on my podcast, but like the way I framed it at the top of the show is you cannot, like, this is talking about this decision in the future, whenever it comes, whatever it is. And I don't even like doing it because I'm enjoying the now so much, but it's, to me, in my opinion, it's like a major purchase on like a house or a car, and whatever, like if you're investing in a expensive house or expensive car, it leaves you with less resources everywhere else. And so to me, it can't just be a conversation of, should it be Sam or should it be JJ? No, should it be Sam and what that allows you holistically, or JJ and maybe a bridge option and what that allows you holistically? I just wonder, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, but where your mind is at with it.
No, I think you bring up a good point, because it's not just a matter of, you can't live in a vacuum where we have to sign one or the other. One or the other is the future. Because with that comes a lot of attachments and a lot of things that you can and can't do with each signing. So if you sign Sam Darnold to something around $40 million, which is probably what he's going to get. Sure. $40 million a year, whatever that guarantee looks like that. I don't know what that's going to look like. But now all of a sudden, you got to think of all the things you can't do now. Like, we can't go out there and probably get a cornerback in the free agency, a top-end cornerback. You probably can't go out there and get a top interior pass rusher, defensive lineman. You can't maybe, bolster your offensive line in a way that you want to. Like, you got to think of all the things that you can't do. So is that a net positive? Not just in the short term, but also 5-6 years down the road, because that's the ripple effect of these signings. That's why when I look at it, all we did was talk about how Kirk Cousins' contract is handcuffing how we can build this roster, not just from a starting standpoint. You got to think about the depth. That is one of the things that comes up every year during the playoffs, is like, not only who's got the best starting 22, but who has the best depth as well. Like, who can bring in a second wave of defensive guys that can rush the passer in the third and fourth quarter. If somebody gets injured, who can step in at the cornerback? Like, it limits what you can do to build the totality of the roster. And so that's why it's of my opinion. Now I sound like a politician. It's of my opinion that you say thanks to Sam, you let him go have this fat contract, and you go and you roll with JJ. And I know a lot of people out there, like, you're never going to get this level of production that JJ is going to get in his upcoming first year starting that Sam's giving you this year. But my argument is, if you feel like you had a better defense and you had maybe another weapon or protection on offense, you don't need him to play at that level, because we are playing more complementary football. We're not giving up. We're not one of the lowest ranked passing defenses in the league. So I think that you can build just as a competitive team with a cheaper, younger quarterback than you could with Sam Darnold.
Yeah. And I get the argument. I mean, I get that argument very well. I also saw a stat yesterday. It's like Vikings have the oldest per snap weighted roster in the NFL. So they need to get younger and they need.
And where are the Packers? The youngest.
Right. They are the youngest. And then what's interesting is I can also understand the opposite argument of like, but do you realize how hard it is to build a guy's confidence the way that Kevin O'Connell and this staff have and develop a guy and have him perform at the level that he is? And we don't know about Jadon. So the opinions to me make sense, but I think you are very smart to mention just the idea of the room for error it gives you and kind of the idea that taking a small step back potentially at the quarterback production spot, if you exceed production defensively in the pass game, then it might be a wash and you have so much more options moving forward. It's we'll talk about this a million times over the next few weeks, months, whatever. I'm sure I'll write 17,000 words about it. And I'm looking forward to Ben, thanks for being in studio and getting away from your sick family.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, I know. Now I've got to go back to the house that's full of just viruses and bugs right now.
You'll be all right. Looking forward to seeing you on Sunday before the game. It's going to be a blast.
Great job, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
You wake up, put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
"Hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?"
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
After Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, "Hey, Meta," to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.